My name is Marina Evans, 32, and last Christmas, I stepped into my family's Burlington mansion, pulse racing. The dining room crackled with tension. My parents, older sister, older brother, and younger sister around the table. I hadn't been home in years. This wasn't a reunion. I had a score to settle. Mid-dinner, my dad stood, voice cold. I've sold Pure Harvest, counters our family's organic food business. You get nothing. My older brother slammed the table, yelling, "What?" My older sister snapped, "This is our legacy." My younger sister gasped, "My brand's done." I stayed quiet, sipping my wine, watching them unravel. Dad smirked, thinking he'd won. The buyer takes over next month. My brother demanded, "Who's buying it?" I stood, locking eyes with him. That would be me. Silence hit like a brick. Their faces, shock, rage, disbelief. They didn't know what I'd built, who I'd become. I leaned in, voice steady. "I'm taking Pure Harvest Co. What's next? Stick around. This gets wild." Love a good family drama? Smash that like button and drop your own betrayal story in the comments. Let's hear it. Growing up in Burlington, I thought family was everything, until I learned it wasn't. I'm Marina Evans, raised in a sprawling Vermont mansion where our family's organic food empire, Pure Harvest Co., cast a long shadow. My father, Stanley Evans, was the iron-fisted CEO, his every word law. My mother, Doris Evans, floated through life, her smiles warm but distant. My older brother, Bryce Evans, strutted like he owned the world, while my older sister, Lori Evans, wielded her sharp tongue like a blade. My younger sister, Aspen Evans, was lost in her own bubble, more interested in her phone than family. Then there was Grandma Evelyn Brooks, the only one who saw me. Pure Harvest was our legacy, built by Grandma's vision for sustainable farming. At 7, I'd trail her through the orchard, soaking up her stories about soil and seasons. "You've got a sharp mind, Marina," she'd say. By 15, I was sketching business plans, dreaming of ways to grow the company. Grandma fueled that fire, teaching me about eco-friendly supply chains. "Build something real," she'd urge, her eyes bright with pride. Bryce and Lori had other plans. At family dinners, I'd pitch ideas like expanding Pure Harvest markets to Canada with local partnerships. Bryce would scoff, "You're dreaming too big, kid." Lori would roll her eyes. "Stick to school, Marina." Dad never listened, his focus on Bryce's flashy proposals. Mom just nodded along, avoiding conflict. Aspen barely looked up from her texts. I felt invisible. My ideas brushed off like crumbs. The real wound came when I was 17. I presented a detailed Canada expansion plan, complete with cost breakdowns. Before Dad could respond, Bryce cut in. "We're already working on that," he lied, smirking. Lori backed him up, claiming my numbers were childish. Weeks later, I saw their pitch to Dad, my plan, word for word, with their names on it. I confronted them, voice shaking. That's mine. Bryce just laughed. Prove it, Lori sneered. You're not cut out for this. Dad didn't care, praising their initiative. Mom stayed quiet, as always. That betrayal planted a seed of defiance in me. The hardest blow came in my final year at the University of Vermont. I was 23, balancing finals and a new business proposal, when Grandma fell ill. She'd been my anchor, the one who believed I could outshine them all. I visited her in the hospital, holding her frail hand as she whispered, "Don't let them dim your light, Marina." She passed away that spring, leaving a void I couldn't fill. Her death wasn't just a loss. It was a call to action. I clutched her old ledger, vowing to honor her by proving my family wrong. Grandma's passing sharpened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for a seat at the table anymore. I was fighting for her legacy. Bryce and Lori thought they could steal my ideas and push me out. Dad thought I'd stay small. They were wrong. I'd build something bigger, something they couldn't ignore, and I'd do it on my own terms. The real breaking point came N years ago, fresh out of college. At 23, I just earned my degree from the University of Vermont, fueled by Grandma's legacy to Hawkins and her belief that I could reshape Pure Harvest Camera, our family's organic food empire. I wasn't the kid they dismissed growing up. I had a plan to prove it, one that would make Dad, Bryce, and Lori eat their words. I marched into Dad's Burlington office with a proposal to launch a line of pre-packaged organic products, meal kits, and snacks for busy urban shoppers. The idea was bold, but grounded. I'd researched market trends showing how packaged organics were booming that year. My binder was packed with supplier contacts, sample recipes, and profit forecasts. Dad, this could expand our market by millions, I said, sliding it across his desk. He barely looked up. Prepackaged food. Too niche, Marina. We're not a convenience store. I pushed back, citing demand for organic meal kits. It's what customers want now. He shut me down. Bryce leads innovation. Stick to your reports. Bryce, sprawled in a corner chair, chuckled. Meal kits. What? You think we're a diner now? Lori, sorting files, smirked. You're not ready for big ideas, Marina. Keep to your spreadsheets. Mom stared at her tea, silent as ever. Aspen fiddled with her earrings, barely listening. I gripped my binder, voice tight. This could put us ahead of competitors, I argued. Dad waved me off. Not now. Focus on your assistant duties. I didn't give up. At the next board meeting, I presented again, armed with packaging prototypes and a pitch for younger buyers. I'd even lined up a grain supplier willing to test a pilot. This is about staying relevant, I said, clicking through my slides. Lori interrupted, her tone sharp. This is a gimmick, Marina. You don't get our brand. Bryce scoffed. You're out of your depth. Stick to data entry. Dad nodded. We're not investing in this. Handle inventory instead. Inventory? I was barely trusted to check stock levels. Their rejection wasn't just business. It was a slap in the face. I'd poured my heart into that plan, inspired by Grandma's lessons on building something lasting. Dad saw me as a kid with no vision. Bryce and Lori treated me like an intern, not a sister. Mom's silence hurt almost as much, and Aspen's disinterest was no surprise. They didn't just reject my idea, they rejected me. I tried one last time, sharing my pitch with the team, informally, hoping for support. Bryce laughed it off. Pre-packaged organics. Good luck selling that to corner stores. Lori rolled her eyes. You're wasting our time, Marina. Dad didn't even show up. I was done. Their dismissal crushed any hope of proving myself in Burlington. I thought of Grandma's words, build something real. I wouldn't do it here. That night, I packed a single bag, staring at my discarded proposal. My family thought I'd stay small, a footnote in their empire. They were wrong. I bought a bus ticket to Millier, an hour away, but a world apart. I wasn't running. I was starting a fight. Millier would be my proving ground, where I'd build something to make them regret underestimating me. Millier was cold and unforgiving, but it was where I became J.M. Harper. I arrived in Vermont's capital with a single suitcase, a few hundred, and a fire in my gut to prove my family wrong. At 23, I was broke, alone, and far from the Burlington mansion where Dad, Bryce, and Lori had dismissed me. But I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. The first year was brutal. I rented a cramped studio, barely covering bills with freelance gigs, writing marketing copy for local farms, analyzing supply chains for small, organic brands. Every dollar went to rent or ramen, but I didn't care. I was free from Dad's shadow, Bryce's smirks, and Lori's cutting remarks. Mom's silence and Aspen's indifference were just memories now. Grandma's words echoed. Build something of your own. So I did. I started sketching out a business under a pseudonym, J.M. Harper, Jane Marina Harper, to keep my family clueless. My idea was the one they'd rejected, a sustainable distribution model for organic produce, connecting Vermont farmers to urban markets. I called it Green Wave Organics. Late nights, I hunched over my laptop, designing a platform to streamline orders, cut waste, and prioritize eco-friendly packaging. It was the plan I'd pitched to Dad, refined with everything I'd learned since. Money was tight, but I wasn't alone. My best friend, Ellie Thompson, a graphic designer with a knack for branding, became my lifeline. Ellie believed in me when I doubted myself. You're onto something big, Marina, she'd say, tweaking my logo over coffee. She helped me craft a sleek website, and pitch decks that screamed professionalism. Her support wasn't just creative. She'd drag me out for pizza when I forgot to eat, reminding me to breathe. By the second year, Green Wave Organics took shape. I partnered with local co-ops, securing contracts with farmers who loved my vision. I negotiated deals with delivery services, keeping costs low by leveraging shared logistics. My platform offered subscription boxes, fresh, organic produce delivered weekly to city dwellers. Customers raved about the quality, and word spread. I landed my first big client, a Burlington grocery chain under my J.M. Harper alias. They had no idea I was in Evans. The grind was relentless. I'd worked 16-hour days, balancing freelance jobs with Green Wave's demands. One night, exhausted, I nearly gave up. My bank account was at $200, and a supplier had backed out. Ellie sat me down. "You're not quitting," she said, shoving a spreadsheet in my face. "Look at your growth. You're making waves." She was right. Orders were up 30% in 6 months. I pushed through cold calling, investors pitching at food expos. Harper. Success came fast. By 25, Green Wave Organics was profitable. I moved to a better apartment, hired a small team, and caught the eye of bigger players. A New York investor impressed by my pitch at a trade show offered $50,000 for a stake. I turned him down. I wasn't ready to share control. Blogs started calling J.M. Harper Vermont's rising star in sustainable food. I'd smile, knowing Dad, Bryce, and Lori had no clue it was me. But I never forgot why I started. Every contract signed, every milestone hit was fuel for my plan. I wasn't just building a business. I was building a weapon. Green Wave Organics wasn't just about organic kale or eco-friendly boxes. It was my way to outshine Pure Harvest Co., to show my family what I could do when they wouldn't listen. Ellie knew my end game. "You're going to crush them?" she'd say, grinning. I'd nod, thinking of the day I'd walk back into that mansion, not as Marina, but as the one who took it all. Just when I thought I'd found my footing, my family struck again. A year after my first big contract with Green Wave Organics, I was 26, riding high on the success of my sustainable food platform in Montier. My business under the alias J.M. Harper was gaining traction. Blogs were buzzing, orders were pouring in, and investors were circling. I was finally proving I wasn't the nobody Dad, Bryce, and Lori thought I was. But they weren't done with me. It started with a call from Todd Brooks, a prominent investor based in Boston. Ellie had connected us after a food expo, and Todd was impressed with Green Wave's growth. He wanted to inject $200,000 to scale our distribution to the East Coast. We set up a meeting in Burlington, neutral ground, close to my roots, but far enough to keep my identity hidden. I prepped for weeks, fine-tuning financials and projections. Ellie helped me polish the pitch, her confidence infectious. "You've got this, Marina," she said, tweaking my slides. I walked into that meeting feeling unstoppable. Todd was all smiles, shaking my hand firmly. "J.M. Harper, you're making waves in organics," he said. We talked numbers, strategy, even shared a laugh over Vermont's quirky farm culture. He was ready to sign until his tone shifted. I heard some concerning rumors about your reliability, he said, eyes narrowing. Is there any truth to claims you've mismanaged funds? I froze, heart sinking. That's nonsense, I said, voice steady, but insides churning. My books are clean. I can show you. He nodded, but pulled back. I'll need to do more due diligence. Let's pause for now. I left, the meeting rattled. My confidence cracked. Ellie met me at a coffee shop, sensing my panic. What happened? She asked. I told her everything, my voice shaking. Someone's spreading lies about me. Ellie's eyes narrowed. This smells like sabotage. I spent days digging, calling contacts, checking forums. Then I found it. A whisper campaign on industry blogs. Anonymous posts calling J.M. Harper untrustworthy and a risky bet. The post traced back to a Burlington IP address. My stomach dropped. I knew that city too. Well, I hired a tech friend to trace the source. The results hit like a freight train. The post came from an account linked to Lori's office at Pure Harvest Co. Bryce's name popped up in related emails, coordinating with Lori to warn investors about me. They didn't know J.M. Harper was me, but they'd caught wind of Greenwave's rise and saw it as a threat to their empire. They'd spread lies to tank my deal, protect their turf, and keep me down. The fallout was brutal. Todd backed out, and 2 other investors followed, spooked by the rumors. Greenwave's cash flow dried up, and I had to let go of half my team. Bills piled up, and I was days away from shutting down. Ellie stayed by my side, working late to redesign our marketing, begging suppliers for extensions. We'll get through this, she said, her voice fierce. I clung to her belief, but inside, I was raging. Bryce and Lori hadn't just stolen my ideas years ago. They were trying to bury me. That betrayal flipped a switch. I wasn't just building Greenwave to succeed anymore. I was building it to destroy Pure Harvest Co. I started researching their operations, digging into their suppliers and distributors. Names like Rebecca Hull, Michael Grant, and Sarah Lee, key partners of Pure Harvest, kept coming up. I studied their contracts, their weaknesses, their loyalties. Ellie noticed my shift. You're going after them, aren't you? She asked, half smiling. I nodded, eyes hard. They'll regret crossing me. I worked in secret, contacting Pure Harvest's partners as J.M. Harper, offering better terms through Greenwave. I wasn't just saving my company. I was laying the groundwork to take theirs. Every late night, every cold call, every deal I secured was a step toward turning their empire to dust. Bryce and Lori thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. For 5 years, I built my plan as carefully as a Vermont winter harvest. After Bryce and Lori nearly tanked Greenwave Organics with their lies, I wasn't just fighting to survive. I was plotting to take down Pure Harvest Co. At 27, I turned my anger into strategy. using my alias, J.M. Harper, to stay invisible. My family thought I was out of the picture, licking my wounds in Montpellier. They were wrong. I started by targeting Pure Harvest's supply chain. Ellie and I dug into their network, identifying key players. Rebecca Hull, a vegetable supplier from Rutland. Michael Grant, a grain distributor in New Hampshire. And Sarah Lee, a logistics expert running their East Coast deliveries. These three kept Pure Harvest shelves stocked. If I could control them, I'd choke Dad's empire without firing a shot. First, I approached Rebecca as J.M. Harper, offering her a deal through Green Wave Organics. Higher margins, faster payments, and eco-friendly packaging that matched her farm's values. She hesitated, loyal to Pure Harvest. But I sweetened the pot with a profit-sharing model. "You're getting a raw deal with them," I said, showing her their contract's fine print. She signed with me within a month. Michael was tougher. He'd known Dad for years. I flew to New Hampshire, pitching Green Wave's data-driven logistics over dinner. "Your margins could double," I told him, sliding over a proposal. He joined after 2 weeks of crunching numbers. Sarah was the hardest. Her delivery network was Pure Harvest's lifeline. I met her in Boston presenting Green Wave as a rising star. "We're outpacing Pure Harvest in efficiency," I said, showing delivery stats. She was skeptical, but when I offered exclusive routes and a stake in our expansion, she caved. By 2023, I had all three locked in, siphoning Pure Harvest's supply chain to Green Wave. Then I found the golden ticket. While reviewing Pure Harvest's contracts thanks to a leak from a disgruntled employee, I discovered a clause buried in their supplier agreements. It gave Dad veto power over any partner's decision to switch companies, a safeguard Grandma had set up decades ago. If I didn't neutralize it, my plan would collapse. I studied the clause for weeks, consulting a lawyer friend in secret. The loophole was simple. The veto only applied if Pure Harvest maintained majority control of its supply chain. By locking in Rebecca, Michael, and Sarah, I'd already tipped the scales. To seal the deal, I offered each partner a long-term contract with Green Wave, tying them to me exclusively. I also bought out 2 smaller suppliers, ensuring Pure Harvest couldn't replace them easily. The clause was now toothless. Dad's veto power was gone. Ellie, who'd been tracking my moves, grinned when I told her, "You're playing chess while they're playing checkers," she said. I nodded, but my focus was razor sharp. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Over the next 2 years, I expanded Green Wave's reach, signing deals with retailers across the Northeast. Every move was calculated to weaken Pure Harvest without tipping my hand. I kept my identity as J.M. Harperite. No social media, no photos, just a name on contracts and emails. Bryce and Lori were too busy running Dad's empire to notice their suppliers slipping away. Mom and Aspen were irrelevant, lost in their own worlds. By 2025. I was ready for the final act. I'd been invited to the family's Christmas dinner in Burlington. Dad's attempt to play patriarch. After years of silence, I knew he was planning to announce the sale of Pure Harvest corn. Desperate to cash out as his supply chain crumbled. What he didn't know was that I'd orchestrated the collapse. I spent the weeks before Christmas finalizing my takeover bid, working with a private equity firm to fund it. Every document was signed as J.M. Harper, my family none the wiser. I wasn't just taking their company, I was taking their pride, their legacy, everything they thought was theirs. As I packed for Burlington, I looked at Grandma's old photo on my desk. "This is for you," I whispered. The stage was set, and I was ready to drop the bomb. Christmas dinner was served, but the real storm was about to hit. I sat at the Burlington Mansion's dining table, 32 years old, facing Dad, Mom, Bryce, Lori, and Aspen. The air was thick with tension, the clink of glasses masking years of resentment. I'd spent 5 years building Green Wave Organics as J.M. Harper, outmaneuvering my family's empire. Now, it was time to end it. Dad stood raising his wine glass, his voice heavy. "I've sold Pure Harvest Co., he announced. "The buyer takes over next month. You're all out of the deal." Bryce's fork clattered to his plate. "You what?" he shouted, face red. Lori's eyes widened, her voice sharp. "This is our legacy." "How could you?" Aspen gasped, clutching her phone. "My brand's done." Mom just stared at her plate, silent as always. I sipped my wine, heart steady, waiting for my moment. Bryce slammed the table. "Who's the buyer?" I set my glass down, stood, and locked eyes with him. "That would be me," I said, voice calm but cutting. "J.M. Harper is Marina Evans." The room went dead silent. Dad's glass trembled in his hand. Bryce's jaw dropped. Lori's face palled. Aspen's phone slipped from her fingers. I leaned forward, letting the truth sink in. I own Green Wave Organics, and I've bought Pure Harvest Co. Lori found her voice first, venomous. You're nobody." I smiled, pulling a folder from my bag. "Not quite. Let's talk about Bryce." I slid financial records across the table. Proof he'd siphoned $200,000 from Pure Harvest's accounts for personal investments. "These bank statements don't lie," I said. Bryce sputtered. "That's fabricated." But Dad's eyes narrowed, scanning the documents. "Explain this," he demanded. Bryce had no answer, his bravado crumbling. I turned to Lori. "And you? Spreading lies to tank my investors. I traced those rumors to your office." Her smirk vanished. I pulled out another document. "Avoided supplier clause." "You thought Grandma's veto clause would save Pure Harvest?" I said. "But I locked in Rebecca, Michael, and Sarah. Your supply chain's mine. The clause is worthless." Dad's face fell, realizing his empire was gone. Mom finally looked up, eyes wet, but said nothing. The table was chaos. Bryce shouted, "You can't do this!" Lori snapped, "We'll fight you in court!" I stood firm. "Try it. My contracts are ironclad." Aspen whispered, "Marina, why?" I looked at her softer but resolute. "Because you all counted me out." I walked out, leaving them to their shock. After Christmas, I took control. As CEO of Pure Harvest, Coer, I restructured everything. Bryce and Lori were fired on day one. No severance, no mercy. Bryce, drowning in debt from his embezzlement, took a job hauling crates at a local warehouse. His ego shattered. Lori's reputation tanked. She scrambled for a low-level marketing gig in Boston. Her industry, clout, gone. I offered Aspen a warehouse clerk role out of pity. She took it head down. Her influencer dreams faded. Mom called once, begging for reconciliation. I hung up. Dad never reached out. I was done with them. I poured my energy into Pure Harvest, merging it with Green Wave Organics. Ellie joined as creative director, her designs shaping our new brand. We expanded to Europe just like I dreamed at 17. To honor Grandma, I founded the Evelyn Brooks Foundation, funding young entrepreneurs in sustainable food. Every grant I signed felt like a nod to her belief in me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. I didn't need their approval to prove my worth. I built an empire from their scraps, not because they let me, but because I never gave up. My family thought they could erase me. They were wrong. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for sticking with me. The lesson here? Justice comes from proving your value, not waiting for others to see it. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if your family betrayed you? Let's keep this conversation